Greetings, I'm Antar. Welcome to my video. I think I'm going to call this video The Old Man from Nicasio. Those of you who don't know about Nicasio, it's in Marin County, which is north of San Francisco. Marin County is a very verdant place, and it's got lakes and creeks and hills to hike in, and it's got rich people in Sausalito and Belvedere, and it's got hippies in Lagunitas and in Fairfax, and it's got a woodsy smell. Nicasio is a little further north, and it's up on top of the mountains. There's a place called Lucas Valley, and George Lucas's Skywalker Ranch is up there. And Lucas Valley and George Lucas, there's no connection, even though those are the same names. And he has this thing up there, and it's around the town of Nicasio. Nicasio is this little two-horse town, and it's really charming. And there's like a little church there. And in the 80s, some of my friends got married in that little church. And there's a nightclub called Rancho Nicasio. And there's some old ranches up there, So this is like the early 90s. And so when I finished in Los Angeles, I finished with my coursework for my PhD. And I hadn't begun my dissertation yet. And I finished the movie business. I moved up to the San Francisco Bay Area. I moved back to the San Francisco Bay Area. And I drove a cab for a while, which I used to do when I needed money. I'd drive a cab. It's around 1991, 92. And in those days, we didn't have a GPS in the taxi, or we didn't have cell phones in 1991. And we had a Motorola radio with a microphone, and there was a live dispatcher, and he was saying, he would send you out on calls. You could talk to him on the microphone, and you could also hear the dispatcher the whole time. So you could hear the dispatcher dispatching calls to other drivers. And I was driving during the day for a while, and I had kind of a shift where I would come on at about 3 p.m. in the afternoon, and I would drive all night. And I would hear there was somebody, this is in the town of San Rafael, which is also in Marin County, and I would hear there was somebody all day long that was hitting all the massage parlors. He'd go to this massage parlor, he'd go to that massage parlor, and there was kind of a buzz and a Twitter about this guy. And this went on for a few weeks, few months. He would usually hit those massage parlors once a month. And I found out later that he was an old man, and he was from Nicasio, and he worked on a ranch, and he was 70 years old. Seemed like a pretty big age for me in those days. 70 years old, and he'd get his pay once a month, and he'd go down to town and he would visit all the massage parlors. So one evening I was there, and I was driving cab, and it was dark, and I got the old man from Nicasio in my cab, and he'd been to all the massage parlors in San Rafael and in Devato, which is another town north. And he wanted more action, so he was telling me, where I can get a girl, and I was thinking, yeah, I'm a cab driver. I'm supposed to know where you get a girl, It's like, I remembered that there's an area of San Rafael called the Canal. It's on the east side of the freeway, and there is actually a kind of a canal there, and there's a lot of low-income housing down there, some restaurants and a shopping center, and a bowling alley. And I remember I used to see girls soliciting behind the bowling alley. And there was a guy, I know this, there was a guy in Richmond who had a stable of these girls, and they would dress up like high school girls, with jeans and parkas and Converse tennies and backpacks and stuff. And I know this because I drove all those girls home to Richmond one time. Richmond's a community across the San Francisco Bay in what they call the East Bay. So I said, well, you can maybe find some girls in the back of the bowling alley. He goes, hot damn, let's do that. So I drove him over there, and we got a girl. And she got in the cab, And he said, I want to go to the motel, So there's a street called Francisco Boulevard that runs along next to the freeway. It's in the canal. And there are some motels there. There's a place that used to be called the Bermuda Palms, and the legend was it was habitated by prostitutes. And there was another place next to the Bermuda Palms, and we drove in there, and I went there and tried to get them a room, and nothing doing. They wouldn't give us a room, so we were kind of in the cab going. And of course, I've got the meter running the whole time, right? But if we're just sitting there, we're on waiting time. So we started driving, maybe looking for another motel. And I suggested, what about a car date? I'd heard someone say car date one time. I'd heard another one of those girls suggest a car date. And the girl said, yeah, let's do a car date. He says, I'll tell you where to go. So she gave me directions. It's like late at night, and I'm driving the cab around in the canal, and we went on a street in the industrial section, and she goes, right over here, pull in here. I pulled in a driveway, and there were like a fleet of trucks, like 18-wheelers. Some of them were just the payload section. It didn't have a truck in front of it, just a payload section. Some of them were entire, So she told me, go and drive in there and drive behind one of these trailer trucks. And I drove the cab. It's at night, right? And I'm actually a little tired. I've been drinking some lattes, whatever, but I drive in there and I pull the cab between two of these big trailer trucks, the payload section. The meter's still ticking. And so they're ready to do their business. So I'm like, would you give us a few minutes? And, oh yeah. So I got out of the cab and I walked out to the street, to the curb, and I was just chilling, just standing there, And I was standing there for a few minutes. It was a kind of a nice night, And all of a sudden, the cops came. Shit. So I'm standing there. A police car comes by. And then he comes back. And he pulls in. And the police get out of the car. And I'm, good evening, officer, And they questioned me. What are you doing here? I showed him my driver's license and everything, and I said, and I made a story, oh, those guys, like Clyde and Jesse, man, we were partying, man, and they just left me here, and they said, stay here, we'll come back, and they never came back. I was just making up a story, right? And they went through my pockets, and they pulled out a pill vial, and it was full of like new age organic kind of pill supplements, like a natural tranquilizer. All this stuff was not illegal. It was just a bunch of fake pills, And they said, what are you doing with all these, I said, well, I get a headache sometimes, And the cop was real nice, and he said, Antar, I don't believe what you're saying, I don't believe what you're saying, but I wonder what you're really up to here. And then another police car came. That was their backup. And he goes in the driveway, but he doesn't stop where we are. He keeps going. And all of a sudden, there's a ruckus, and we have to walk over to where the cab is. And I didn't see it, but the police told me that the girl, she jumped out of the cab and she ran to the back of that lot, and she hopped over a fence, and pew, pew, she was gone, you know. And the old man is in the back of the cab. The meter's still running. He's going, hot damn, the police in this town are really good, you know. You know. So, the police were asking me questions about the girl. They were concerned that the girl was all right, you know. And the old man was telling me, and finally the police went away, they let us go, you know, and he was telling me, yeah, that girl, she gave me a suck job, you know. And he was happy, you know. So I drove him home all the way to Nicasio from the canal area of San Rafael all the way up the freeway and up that mountain. It's the middle of the night, man. He goes, he gets out of the car and he opens this like gate, you know, which is made of wood, you know, and we drive up in front of a farmhouse, you know. It's the middle of the night. He goes, I'll get your money, you know. And he went in the house, and I'm waiting, you know. And after a while, it seemed like it was too long, you know. So I got out of the cab and I went in the house, and it was dark in the house, and I saw him in the moonlight, and he was hovering over a bed, and there was another old man lying in the bed, and apparently that was his brother, and he was trying to wake the brother up to get the money to pay me, the taxi driver, you know. So he got the brother up, he got him to write me a check, and I didn't used to accept checks. What are you going to do? You know, I'm like 5 miles from downtown San Rafael, and I've been with this guy for an hour or whatever, you know. So I took the check, and I said, thank you, and I drove it. And the guy had himself a fine time. It was the first of the month, and he was 70 years old. He was the old man from Nicasio. Thank you. Ciao.